Hi everyone, let's see how long this nice lighting lasts. Usually in this room, not very often. Today I'm going to be talking about my emetophobia and my journey through cognitive behavioural therapy. If you are feeling in a very mentally vulnerable state and a bit sensitive, this video might not be right for you at the moment. I know that in the past, when I've been particularly sensitive, I've watched videos of others talk about their anxiety, and it's kind of done me no good. I spent the next couple of days being quite anxious. So just to let you know, if you are in that state of mind, maybe put this off for a little while and then come back when you're feeling a bit better. I'm going to try to not have this video too long. There's a lot of things that happened. I've got it all written down. So basically, I'm going to talk about the origins of my phobia, and how they came about and how I eventually realised I had them. Back in 2008, I think I've written down, these are just guesstimates of when it happened, I gave blood. Now, I donate blood, or used to donate blood on a regular basis. I'm not scared of needles. It was in, donate, out. I was fine. But this particular time I was in a rush to donate, and I donated very, very fast. Way faster than I should have donated. I sat up, I felt woozy, I got laid down again. I went over to the table to have a cup of tea. Mid-biscuit eating, I passed out. So they put me on the bed. I went through all the things you kind of go through when you pass out. I felt shaky. I felt sick. I was cold. And I didn't like it. I didn't like that feeling of helplessness. Next time I donated blood, I felt fine, but those thoughts came back. And I remember being in the toilets, and in the toilets where I donated, they have blue lights. It's like a community centre, and the lights are there to stop people injecting things. I remember just being in the toilets thinking, whoa, so I don't feel good. And the nurse actually said, it's in your head. There's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. And she was right. It was in my head. And I wished I'd taken more notice, but that had set me off on a kind of spiral of not feeling comfortable with being dizzy and lightheaded. So from that point, I'd almost developed a little bit of a fear of being lightheaded and dizzy. I had gone to the doctors because I know passing out's not a normal thing. In hindsight, the passing out was down to my donating too fast, but I went to the doctors anyway because I was advised to, and they actually diagnosed me with an underactive thyroid. Now, this had nothing to do with me passing out giving blood. It just so happened that I had an underactive thyroid, and they found it by doing some blood tests. I never had any symptoms of it. I always thought people with underactive thyroids were overweight, always very tired. And when I said this to the doctor, she said, you probably would have noticed in your mid-30s that you probably would have put weight on without knowing why. But because of your active lifestyle and my portion sizes, they had asked me how much I eat and said I don't eat enough. She said that's why you've kept your weight normal. So I got put on levothyroxine for that. Everything has been fine. I've not had any side effects with that or anything. That's as normal. Then I went on holiday to Vegas, and this is actually the main trigger for my emetophobia. I went out drinking with my friend, and we were very, very hungover. The next day, we spent the entire day kind of being hungover, traipsing through Madame Tussauds, taking horrendous hungover pictures. Then we went back to bed and spent the entire day in bed watching Kardashians. The next day we got up, totally hangover free. We thought, fine, back on track. We decided to get a flight over the Grand Canyon, a helicopter flight. On the helicopter flight, before that I'd taken a travel sick pill because I do suffer with travel sickness. So I'd taken a travel sick pill probably a minute 2 minutes before we landed in the Grand Canyon, my friend turned to me, we had the big headphones on, and she said, "I feel sick." And I'm like, "No, you can be fine, you're fine, you don't feel sick." A minute from landing in the Grand Canyon, she reached forward for a sick bag, put her face in, and started throwing up into the sick bag. Now, at this point, I had no phobia of throwing up. I hadn't done it for a long time. The last time I've actually successfully thrown up was when I was 19. I'm 32 now. So I wasn't scared of her saying that. I just didn't really want to sit next to someone being sick. Nobody does. So I kind of breathed through my mouth. I learned that from CSI. If you don't want to smell something, you do that thing where you sound like you've got a cold and you block your nose and you breathe specifically through your mouth and you can't smell anything. So I did that. Couldn't smell anything. You know, she was crying into a sick bag. I was rubbing her back. I was like, "You're fine, you're fine." We got out, and about 10 minutes into being in the Grand Canyon, I started to feel sick. And that's when I thought, she hasn't been sick because of the helicopter ride. She's been sick from something else. We have something, we've caught something. And I know it's quite often to catch something on a long haul flight. There's a lot of germs, a lot of people there. We had the flight back. We'd sort of done the Grand Canyon. We had the flight back to the centre where the helicopters were. I was okay, but I felt really sick. All the way back to our hotel, I felt ill. And then when I got back, I went to the toilet and I had a number 2. Then we decided that we were going to go out. I thought, I'll take some Pepto-Bismol, something else to stop me feeling sick, and we'll go out drinking. So we started getting ready, and that's when the urges came to throw up. Now, my body, for a lot of years, has worked the other way. When I have eaten something that hasn't agreed with me, I won't throw up. My digestive system will almost work it through so quickly, and I'll get rid of it the other way. And it's always been like that. I think the last time I threw up, I did have, I think it was salmonella or something. I'd eaten chicken from a very sketchy restaurant, and I really had no choice. But whenever I've had something that hasn't agreed with everybody else, my body works it down and gets it out that way. So when I started having the urge to be sick, there was nothing in my stomach to bring up. I hadn't drank any water, I hadn't eaten any food, so I was just dry heaving. And nothing I was taking was stopping me from trying to be sick. The entire night, I mean, my friend was full on glamour, all her makeup, all her hair done, and she said, "I'll just sit in bed and wait for you." And at 5 o'clock in the morning, she got up and looked at my bed and saw it was empty. She was like, "Where's Charlotte?" Came to the bathroom, and I'd been asleep on the floor, on the nice cold marble floor, just crawling to the toilet every hour to try and get something up. It was to the point where I actually wanted to be sick. I was like, just please get something up, and I couldn't. The next day, we made a beeline for the pharmacy, and I got something called Emetophobia. It's actually an anti-nausea medicine for children. And I got 2 bottles of that, and that stuff worked wonders. It completely cut out my nausea until the medicine wore off. And I just necked that stuff every time I felt sick. That, me feeling ill for so long and not being able to throw up, triggered this phobia that I had no awareness of. I didn't know it had triggered a phobia, but that was the point where it had started. That was a seed that had been sown. I think maybe a year later, I was at work. My friend was off poorly for a week or 2, and I was covering all of his shifts at work. So I worked during the day in the office, and then on the night time there was a lot of shows I had to run, and I had to run them. There was no one else to cover. So I was just drinking Red Bull, taking Pro Plus, doing anything to try and keep my energy up, to keep me working day and night. I didn't work through the night, I finished at 11 o'clock at night, and then I started work again at 10 o'clock in the morning. But my energy dipped really low. And I remember being on Pro Plus a lot and drinking a lot of Red Bull. One evening I went to a friend's house for dinner. We were sat in the living room and I was watching TV. and I started to feel funny. The TV was kind of backlit. It was one of these TVs that shine certain colours on the wall to give you a better effect of the TV. And I remember looking and thinking, I don't feel good. Like, this is sending me weird. And I said to my friend, I don't feel good. And then I noticed my heart started to pound. And I said, my heart rate is racing. I said, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sat here. Straight away, she realised it was a panic attack. She'd had panic attacks before and she recognised what was happening. Went into the kitchen, got me a bag and just said, breathe into this bag. So obviously I breathed into the bag. After a while, my heart rate returned to normal. And she said, you might want to get that checked out. Drove home, booked an appointment with the doctor. I spoke to my doctor, who told me one of the best books I've ever been given. He decided to give me a self-help book before beta blockers. He said, try this book before you need the beta blockers. If this book doesn't work, then come back and speak to me. And that book was Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. I rave about this book all the time. It's such a good book. It teaches you to just be a happier, more chilled out, nicer person. There's some things in there that I still think I have to work towards, but I would advise getting this book. The one I bought was secondhand off Amazon. It cost me like £2, and I love it. I have it next to my bed, and I read one little thing every night. There's 100 points in it, and I read sort of one point every night, just random pages. And I absolutely love it. And it does just teach you to not worry about things, to not hold on to grudges, just to be a more chilled out, relaxed, nicer person. And this book helped me deal with stress. So I'd had this book, I dealt with my stress, so there was no need for beta blockers. However, my behaviour got a bit unusual. I don't remember how I got to the point I got to. I was developing this phobia of being sick, and it was happening right under my nose, and I had no idea. It's a little bit like when you put weight on. You put a pound on here, you put a pound on there, and you don't know it's happening until all of a sudden you're like, how come my jeans don't fit? And you just didn't realise. And little things had been happening, random things. I went to a restaurant with my mother. I took my mum out for Mother's Day. In the restaurant, I started to get anxiety. Now, this was before I knew what was going on. I just thought I had a bad stomach. I had a really bad stomach. I had to go up to the toilet. And I probably spent about 60% of the restaurant time in the toilet. I came back down, I was flushed, I felt sick, I couldn't eat. And that happening sent me a little bit further down the spiral. I went to my mum's for dinner, Sunday dinner. I spent most of the time in the toilet. And each time something like that happened, I got further and further down without noticing. And it got to the point where I kind of stopped eating meat because I was so petrified. Sorry. I eventually got to the point of being a vegetarian. Whenever I did cook meat, I cremated that stuff so bad that there's no way any bad bacteria could have been in it. This went on for about a year, I think. When someone said they felt sick, I looked at them and I'm like, you feel sick? And I'm like, oh no, I've just eaten too many chocolates, I feel sick. And I'm like, oh, okay. I literally took everything. Literally, when someone said they feel sick, I think they feel sick. They're going to make me sick. They're going to touch me. I'm going to get something and I'm going to be sick. And that just got worse and worse and worse without me really noticing. I knew that when someone said they felt sick or going to be sick, that I didn't want to be near them. But I hadn't noticed that it was getting a bit out of control. And it wasn't until one day I decided to look something up on the internet, and I think I typed in fear of being sick. And a video came up. I might put the video in my description. The video came up and it was a snippet from a TV show called Good Morning with Philip Schofield, I think it was on. And it was about a woman who had something called emetophobia. Now, I'd never heard of this before because I'd never considered I had a phobia of throwing up. And I remember sitting in the bathroom, I think I was getting ready for work, sitting in the bathroom and watching this video of this woman describing everything I went through. Sorry, my SD card filled up. So yeah, when I would go past a car that was pulled over on the motorway and I was in a car, straight away I would assume someone's been sick. Everything was something's being sick, they're going to be sick, they're going to make me sick. And I just hadn't noticed that pattern of thought. And when I watched this video, it all just dawned on me. Everything that I'd thought, everything I'd been through, just washed over me like this, not like an epiphany, it was like this rain of tar. And it was this horrible feeling of, this is what I have, this is me. And that realization led to a horrible panic attack. It wasn't the kind of panic attack where I have a beating heart. I literally shrunk to being that big. My body felt like it was that small. And I was stood in my bathroom, all alone in the world, that small. And it was very unusual. And my boyfriend and his brother came through the front door, after about 2 minutes and kind of snapped me out of it. And it was the best thing ever to be like, people, I have people here. But I hid it from them. I didn't tell my boyfriend what was going on. I just kind of hid it because, and this is another thing, I have, and I don't think it's that unusual, I have a bit of a fear of being locked away in a mental institute. Every time I watch something like a TV show or a movie that's about that, it makes me feel petrified. So Poppy Shakespeare, I remember sobbing at the end of that because I thought that's how you get sucked in. You get taken in by accident and then they drag you in and keep you in. Gothica, she ended up being in the institute. Shutter Island, didn't know what Shutter Island was about, and I watched it and that was horrible. It made me feel horrible for days after. So I did always have that fear, and I didn't want to tell people of these thoughts because I thought they'll lock me away, they'll put me in a mental institute, and once I'm in, I'll never be able to get back out. So that's why I hid it. That night, I had to go to work, and I just remember feeling horrible the entire night. Somebody came in, a member of staff, and sneezed near me. And when she sneezed near me, I backed away because I thought, she's going to sneeze near me and I'm going to catch something and I'm going to be sick. And I just thought, this can't go on. This thing, I can't keep going on like this. And I went home early from work that night. My friend sent me home early. I came home. I went in the kitchen to start cleaning my hamster out. And I just burst into tears with my hamster. Sat on the kitchen floor and tried to do it quietly, hiding it from my boyfriend. He was in the sitting room. And he came in and I was kind of turned away from him. And he started to say something. And I guess he knew something was wrong. And I broke down. I broke down and told him, and he didn't really get it. A, I'd hidden this from him, and B, he never really understood. A lot of people don't understand mental health issues. I didn't understand mental health issues because I'd never had them before. But I said, I feel like I'm losing it. I need help. I need to go and see someone. So I booked an appointment with the doctor. The appointment with the doctor was actually for pain in my stomach. The thing about anxiety, a lot of you will know, is it actually causes a physical change in you. When you're very anxious, it causes physical problems. And I had excess acid on my stomach. So I was going to my doctors because I had this constant pain on my stomach. I felt sick a lot of the time. It was a vicious cycle. And I was taking tablets to stop stomach cramps whenever I ate. So I went to the doctors, and I think it turned out to be like a small ulcer I'd given myself. Now that ulcer has led to me being lactose intolerant. I won't explain why, you can look it up. Basically, large changes in your stomach can actually lead to that. Pregnancy can lead to that. So that actually led to me being lactose intolerant. But when I was there, I sat down and again, I burst into tears. I just broke down and said to the doctor, I'm not eating anymore. I don't eat food because I'm so scared I'm going to be sick. And my doctor, bless him, I don't think he really knew what to do. He just kind of sat there and looked at me, and I had snot everywhere. And I was like, can I have a tissue? So I got myself a tissue, and he just picked up a card. And this card actually said, T's time to talk. And I will leave those details in the bottom because it's my local one. And he said, ring these people and book an appointment with them. And it was a health service, like a mental health service, I think, run by the NHS, local to my area. I rang them and they got me like a preliminary appointment. And that appointment was for a month's time. That was the longest month I ever had to wait because I wanted this help and I was getting the help, but I had to wait. And I just thought, I have another month of stressing every day about being sick, about eating. And it was the longest month ever. I remember going for that appointment and it was in this tiny little room. I was so nervous. And the girl who spoke to me had a really runny nose. And I actually made her feel a bit guilty. I didn't mean to, but I was saying, even if someone sneezes near me now, I feel like it's going to make me sick. And she looked at me, she was like, I'm not going to be sick. She said, this is allergies. I'm not poorly. It's hay fever. And I go, God, like, I'm making these people feel terrible. But she was brilliant. She said that I would be put forward for cognitive behavioural therapy, or CBT, and that it would be almost like exposure. I can't remember if I'd looked up the word exposure therapy or she'd said it to me. And I remember saying, you're not going to expose me to it, are you? Like, you're not going to make me listen to someone be sick or watch someone be sick. And she just kind of laughed and she went, that's not how CBT is at all. And it wasn't. It was held in my doctor's surgery. Where I go for my doctors, there's like 4 different surgeries in this huge place. So it was right near my doctor's surgery. And I had the most lovely therapist and I was given 12 sessions. And I've actually got my file. I still have my file here. I kept it with me because I thought if ever I need to refer to it, I'll go back to it. I've got it. And I'll show you what I've got in it. Just lots of reader material. So talks about the cycle of anxiety, basically why you feel anxious, anxiety, increased scanning for danger, physical symptoms, you avoid it, you get short-term relief, but in the long term, you fear it. So it's just understanding why I did certain things, emotions and their associated thoughts, your body reactions, about automatic thoughts. This is something I've really benefited from, learning about your thoughts. And you have thoughts that come and go. And whenever you have a bad thought, if you hover over it, you give that thought power and you make it worse. And you just got to understand that some thoughts just come and go. Some people have, and I definitely have had thoughts that are really horrible. Something will come into my head and I think, God, I don't mean that. Like, why would I think that? That's really horrible. But then it will go. And then I feel guilty over that thought, but I can't remember the name of it. It's got a term. But basically, when a thought enters your head, It's not necessarily what you think or believe, it just pops into your head. And obviously you pay it more attention because you think that was terrible. They do have a certain name. Someone will probably write it in, or if I remember, I'll pop it down. But yeah, your thoughts are very, very powerful things. So I worked on trying to just let them go like clouds. They come and they go, and just let them be. Panic diary. That's just panic when I've had panic. On 7th of July, I had increased heart rate on an airplane. That was just the fear, the consequences, and the behaviour, what I did. Relaxation techniques, calming techniques, and this, let's have a look what this is. Oh, panic diary again. Let's have a look. At home on my own, doing some exercise. I had dizzy, increased heart rate. I thought my dizzy spell meant I was going to pass out. I took a 5 minutes break. Again, feeling tired, headache, lethargic, feeling sick. Because my headache lasted more than a day, I thought there was something wrong with my head. I noticed that when I took my mind off it, the pain subsided. So again, that was all about thoughts. Fight or flight response. This, understanding this was so helpful to me. When you have a panic attack, if you don't understand what's happening with your body and you don't understand why, it's easy to think that you're dying. But it is just your fight or flight response. And when you understand why your heart rate increases, why you feel sick, why you might feel dizzy, why your mouth goes dry, it explains everything. And because everything has an explanation, you can rationalise it. So this is a lot of what CBT is. It's a lot of documentation to read and writing. This, let's have a look. Situation, my mum invited me out for a meal for her birthday to a restaurant I've not been to before. I declined. Thought record, I was worried that I'd feel sick and have a bad tummy while I was at the restaurant. Thoughts, I had felt fine until my mum called and suggested the meal. What are these ones? I was at my friend's barbecue and ate a burger. Then when I went to get one, I noticed there was a little blood on the plate. I was feeling anxious that I was going to get food poisoning. I comforted myself in the fact that everyone else seemed fine. There were lots of children at the party, so the person cooking them would have made extra sure they were cooked well. And the thoughts I'd been having before I started to feel that way. I'd been thinking about eating barbecue food when they first invited me. I know that barbecues are renowned for causing food poisoning. A lot of this was down to food poisoning. Like, a lot of my thoughts were around being poisoned by food, which is why I stopped eating, really. Another one, in why I mentioned being sensitive to this video at the beginning, I was at home watching Peter Andre face his fear of roller coasters. I started to feel uneasy, slightly raised heart rate, and the next day I just didn't feel right, sort of an edge, not myself. When I was watching the programme, his panic reminded me of when I had a panic attack, and it brought back the bad feelings and memories. And it did. I'd watched videos about it thinking, watching this video will help me, and it didn't, because it brought back all my feelings about it and actually made me feel worse. This documentation, this paperwork, is from about 4 sessions, I think I had. 4 sessions of cognitive behavioural therapy. This stuff in here was from 4 sessions of CBT. The reason I only had 4 sessions was because after 4 sessions and a holiday, I didn't feel like I needed it anymore. I went away on holiday. I had an incident that made me feel exceptionally sick. Basically, I took a travel sick tablet because I was going on a bus. I took that tablet on an empty stomach with slight sunstroke. I had an adverse reaction to it. My eyeballs were the size of dinner plates. My pupils, not my eyeballs. I felt very sick, but when I came through the other side, it was like a victory for me. And when I came back to CBT afterwards, I was like a different person. I was not the same person that went away. And I think it was just a week of my mind being on something else, having too much fun to think about my anxiety. And I came back for the 5th session and basically just walked in and said, I don't think I need this anymore. I understand what my body's doing, why it's doing it. So I learned about panic, my body, and my thoughts, and worked on those. And the holiday really just made me into a new person. And I didn't have any more sessions after that. I wasn't cured. It took me, I would say it took me another 6 months for me to totally get over my anxiety. I had days where I would feel that bad anxiety, where I would feel that I'm going a bit crazy, that I'm getting dragged back under. Not the normal anxiety. I have normal anxiety. So when I went for my procedure, I was anxious about going under general anaesthetic. I would put that in a box of normal anxiety. That's okay if you to be anxious about that. But the not normal anxiety is worrying myself loads over eating sausages. Oh, just ate those sausages. Am I going to be sick? I have not had that probably in about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years now. And it was just time that helped me. I had little blotches of anxiety up until about Christmas. And the further I got away from this whole episode in my life, the less I was anxious. When I had an anxiety day, I felt like I'd been dragged back and all that hard work I'd put in. But now it's been so long that it's almost hard to remember what it was like. I'm rambling now. That's what I'm doing. It's hard to describe how I feel. I'd worked on my anxiety. I'd informed myself of what it was, what my phobia was, the rationale behind it. Now, don't get me wrong. If I thought for a single second that I was going to be sick, I'd be very anxious. I'd be worried. I'd get hot and sweaty. I'd probably have a little panic attack. But I don't live in fear of that day to day. I quite often say that if I just threw up and got it out the way, I'd be finished. I'd be done with that. I'd be healed. But still on the same side, I don't want to do it. So yeah, that was my story about how my phobia manifested itself in me. I was totally unaware of it. I had no idea I was going down this path, and it really, really knocked me. Although I'm a complete introvert, I stay in a lot. I'm only really comfortable around people I know. I'm very confident in myself. I know what I want. I know how to get it. I'm very focused. And for something like being sick to completely change who I was, it completely changed my personality, really knocked who I was. It really knocked my confidence. I suppose it's like when somebody gets physically injured. For example, last year, my boyfriend gets football injuries, but he heals at a tremendous rate. He rarely bruises. He hardly ever gets a bruise. And he kind of has this, it's almost like a Superman complex where he thinks, I'm really good at healing. Last year, he took a knock in football. He got 2 broken ribs and a punctured lung and had to be admitted into hospital to be looked after and have surgery on his lung. And that really knocked him, because it's a reminder of you're human. You're not as strong as you think you are. And my knock was mentally. It was, I've let this thing take over. It happened right under my nose and I couldn't even see it before it was too late. But CBT helped me. And working at it, really working at just trying to think positively. And when people just say, oh, you'll be fine, just think positively, I know how hard that is when people say that. It's like, well, you can say that, but, saying it and doing it is one thing. If you are suffering from a phobia, emetophobia, or whatever phobia, or you need help, just get help. Speak to somebody, ring your doctors. Just Google mental health charities that are near you in your area and speak to someone. people always say that admitting you need help is the biggest step and the first step. Admitting I needed help wasn't my biggest step, because as soon as I realised I had something wrong with me, I held my hand up and I was like, I need help. My biggest step was actually realising that I had something wrong with me. I didn't even know anything was wrong with me. I thought it was totally normal to cremate sausages and then panic while eating them and thinking these are going to make me sick, and then stay up most of the night, like getting these hot flushes in bed and worrying that I was going to be sick. So my biggest step was actually realising that, yeah, this isn't normal, and telling people I love about it. Getting professional help was the next step for me. It was like, right, okay, I want this. So if you are suffering from anything like this, I know that you're going to feel anxiety about getting it. I know you're like, I want help, but I feel so anxious about getting help. Book yourself an appointment. You don't have to go. Book yourself an appointment. Just do that. And then when the appointment rolls round, don't press yourself to go. Just think, I might go to the office. I might go to the doctor's office and just sit there, and I might go inside. And you'll be amazed how much you can do. You'll be amazed how much it helps. CBT might not work for everyone. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who've tried it and it hasn't worked, but my life would not be anything like it is now if it wasn't for cognitive behavioural therapy, my therapist, my friends and family who stuck by me, and the book I love that helps me keep calm and focused now. So that was my very lengthy story. I dread to think how long this video is. I hope I helped you. Please feel free. Please do actually leave a comment down below, because if you leave a comment, someone will reply with their story, some advice, and it starts a conversation. It gets people talking, and talking is the key. That is so good, to get things off your chest, hear other people's experiences. So if you're going through anything, please leave a comment below. If you read that person's comment and you want to say something back, just let them know, we can chat on here, or, send an email or something, and you guys can get talking and hopefully help each other. I'm going to go now because I've got a date with a bag of minstrels and a cup of tea. Take care, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye.